Good morning and welcome to this Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development special meeting agenda for this morning. My name is Evan Duncan, City Councillor and Chair of Property and Development. I am joined this morning by Councillor Schreier, as well as members of the Public Service, including our Senior Committee Clerk, Steve Bowen, and other members of our Public Service who will introduce themselves in our process here this morning. I'd like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territories, the original homeland of the Innu, Cree, and Dakota people, and the homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water does come from Shoal Lake 41st Nation. I do not believe that we need to hear the minutes from any previous meetings at this point in time. So with that, I will turn it over to our committee clerk to introduce the item.
Sure. Just for everyone's information, there has been a conflict of interest declared for this matter. So in accordance with Section 8.4 of the procedure bylaw, where council has designated a standing policy committee as the hearing body for an appeal under any bylaw where one or more members of the appeal committee are disqualified due to participation in the original hearing or having advised the committee they have a conflict, the majority of the councillors remaining, if not fewer than two, shall constitute a quorum. So one councillor is unable to be with us today, and there is a conflict of interest. So we'll proceed with the hearing now that quorum has been met.
Thank you.
In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, the process the committee will follow is the appellant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the appeal. Next, those registered in opposition are heard, followed by those registered for information. Finally, the appellant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted. Please note that when your name is called, it is your opportunity to speak. However, you are not obligated to do so. Item 1 is an appeal under the City of Winnipeg Building Bylaw number 4555 of 87 at 655 Main Street. Please note additional communications were received in support of and in opposition to the appeal after the agenda was published, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. The committee would like a brief overview of the appeal from the Public Service.
Please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members, Madam Clerk. I'm Kelly Happychuk. I'm the Chief of Enforcement in Planning, Property and Development. And with me is Jeff Mikolenko, the Administrator for Commercial Inspections. Today's matter is, as the clerk has mentioned, that this is an appeal of an order our department issued to the owner of 655 Main Street, otherwise known as the Manwin Hotel. Our order was for vacate premises, and that was issued on January 3rd, 2025. This appeal was filed in accordance with provisions of the Charter Act and is before you today. The City of Winnipeg Charter Act, or through the City of Winnipeg Charter Act, the Planning, Property and Development, or PP&D department is responsible for, among other things, the approval and issuance of all permits related to building, construction, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, demolition, development, occupancy, and the enforcement of these areas. Additionally, PP&D is the AHJ, or the authority having jurisdiction for the City of Winnipeg for all matters that arise related to Manitoba Building Code and Winnipeg Building Bylaw number 4555 of 87. With respect to this property, the Manwin Hotel, 655 Main Street, is currently not in compliance with several areas of the Winnipeg Building Bylaw and the Residential Buildings Fire Safety Bylaw number 4304 of 86. The Residential Buildings Fire Safety Bylaw 4304 of 86 was adopted by Council back in 1986 to address a number of fire-related deaths in multifamily dwellings that had occurred at that time. There was originally a 10-year deadline for compliance. To these, there was a lot of buildings that were involved, estimated between 4,000 and 5,000 buildings or dwellings that were affected by this bylaw. And Council gave a 10-year timeline to come into compliance with the bylaw. However, a lot of these were very slow in coming into compliance. Fast forward 30 years after, in 2016, the bylaw, after the 30 years after the bylaw was enacted, a fee schedule was introduced, escalating penalties to owners to disincentivize the non-compliance with that bylaw. And this was done primarily to shift the costs of enforcement from the taxpayers at the time directly onto offending owners. And in 2016, we had about 1,300 non-compliant Division 1 buildings. By 2019, less than a handful of buildings remained non-compliant, and today, in 2025, there are still 9 buildings of that original between 4,000 and 5,000 that remain non-compliant to varying degrees with the 4304 bylaw, and 655 Main Street is one such building that has never come into full compliance. And over the years, there have been numerous appeals by the owner on the various penalties that have been imposed along the way, and all of those have been denied by council. Specifically, the premises at 655 Main is approved to have 24 suites. There are currently 35 suites. These 11 additional suites were constructed without permits, and we do not know how they were constructed. And by that, we mean, were they built the plans? Were those plans drawn by a design professional? Were the builders that were hired to do the work professional enough to meet all the requirements of the code? The only thing that we do know is that the work was done without our department's approval or the subsequent inspections. For the background on this, the department was made aware of these suites in around 2017 and has been working with the owner to try to bring that construction into compliance ever since. To this end, the department has attended the property well over 100 times, and that's just in-person attendance, not including any phone calls or emails or any other means of communication. Those attendances were to conduct progress inspections or inspections specific to some permit requirements, or they were in response to unsafe situations, including post-fire inspections, maintenance of electrical systems, maintenance of fire alarm systems, egress paths, fire escapes, and the like. In each instance, there have been promises to obtain permits, promises to complete the required work, and promises to ensure the building is on the path to compliance. And the department has used all of its tools to try to compel that compliance. We have issued bylaw violation notices, which are essentially warnings for all the outstanding items. We have issued under penalty notices, which are tickets under the Municipal Bylaw Enforcement Act. At least 7 of those have been issued at $1,000 each, and they all remain unpaid. We have issued the escalating fees under the 4304 bylaw that I mentioned earlier that was enacted in 2016, and that currently sits just shy of $200,000 in unpaid fees. We have issued orders to obtain permits that remain unresolved, and now we have taken the extraordinary step of issuing an order to vacate. The department does not take this step lightly or without contemplation of the impacts that will stem from it. It is ultimately the owner's responsibility for maintaining their property in a safe condition and in compliance with all city bylaws and all building and safety codes. And when owners do not or cannot comply, PPD, as the authority having the jurisdiction, has a duty to respond, and the department feels it can no longer wait for compliance while the building is occupied. To summarize, 655 Main Street is not compliant with the Winnipeg Building Bylaw or the Winnipeg Residential Fire Safety Bylaw, and by extension, the Manitoba Building Code for various reasons, notably having constructed additional living suites without approvals or permits. The property requires that all proper approvals and permits that accurately reflect the work has been done or shall be done, including engaging all the necessary design professionals to provide a review and design the repairs and alterations through building conditions assessments that demonstrate compliance with the bylaws, identify potentially hazardous areas such as electrical or HVAC or sprinkler fire alarm systems, or proper fire separations were built using approved methods and materials, and noting any defects found through the building conditions assessment are then to be addressed through the appropriate building and or trade permits. And completed applications for review by the department will result in the issuance of other required building permits, and after which inspections will be conducted with the goal of obtaining a new occupancy permit. As part of the package that is submitted and is on the agenda, you'll see 2 drawings. One, they're the same drawing, but what we have done, this will be on page 5 of the submission. You'll see the floor plan for the second floor, which contains 24 suites. And then below that, you'll see what our department, our staff have gone in and estimated where the new construction, where suites were split and made into smaller. So that's what that is showing. And at the end of the day, that work was done without permits. We're not even sure if that work would meet code right now, but we won't know until we have a completed application package from the applicant. So we are asking the department, is respectfully asking that this committee deny the appeal and confirm the order to vacate the premises.
Questions? Can you just clarify, please, the timeline again, starting with originally how many of the city were compliance when this came into effect and what year that was?
So the property is approved to have 24 suites, and that's
in total. You walked us through a timeline, 2016.
yeah. So in 2017, we became aware of additional suites having been built. So that's up to 35 now. So there's 11.
Sorry, I'm asking in total in the city of Winnipeg with this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There were originally between 4,000 and 5,000 properties that were subject to the 4304 bylaw.
During what year? Yeah.
In 1986.
86.
That's the year that the bylaw came into
effect. How
effect.
did we communicate to those 4,000 to 5,000 that this was a bylaw?
Well, I certainly wasn't around at that time. I believe it was probably through letter mail and then in person.
And then fast forwarding, I believe the next day provider was
2016.
1,000 plus.
There were still 1,300 on record that were non-compliant.
Okay. And how was communication given to those 1,300?
Through registered mail again to the owners.
Okay. And then it sounded like there was a dramatic decrease in 2019. Can you provide that number again?
That number is, sorry, where did I have that? I think we were down to, oh, sorry, it was less than a handful, is the wording that we used. And today there are still 9 buildings across the city, and this is one of them. Yeah.
And we assume that on these instances or points in time that 655 Main Street was given some form of communication.
Everything would have been sent by registered mail.
All right, so then on to the number of suites they're permitted to be 24.
Correct.
And how many currently are there again?
35.
There's no record of permits or any of that sort of official business for the city on those additional 11 units.
Not for the construction. We have some attempted permit applications. They're incomplete.
Okay.
We have no submissions that show us the 35 suites. We only have submissions showing us the 24 suites.
Okay. And then you noted in your 2017 inspections started taking place at that time?
That's when we were first, it was first brought to our attention that these suites have been constructed. It was sent to us anonymously through a tip. The subsequent follow-up in late 2017 and into 2019 had the owner confirm to the department that these suites were constructed. And that's when we started our engaging with them to try and have the proper drawings done and the permits pulled.
And then that resulted in approximately 100 plus visits / inspections since 2017.
That's correct.
So a dozen depends on.
At least.
Okay. And then plus any type of communication or mail.
Yeah, phone calls, letter mail, and emails. The number climbs into the hundreds.
Unresponded or
no, there's definitely a communication between the owner and the department. There's just a lack of actually obtaining the permits.
So when compliance wasn't met, tickets were then issued.
Yes.
And you said there were 7 tickets for $1,000.
Yes.
Okay. And have any of those tickets been paid?
No.
And then you gave us a number of 200,000 in unpaid fees.
Correct.
Can you just be more specific?
So, for the 4304 bylaw, the residential safety upgrade bylaw, in 2016, council approved a more active and stringent penalty scheme for the non-compliance. And this is where we went from the 1,300 dramatically down, because then owners obviously got the message that they didn't want to have to pay. The way it was listed
Is
was
that what you're referring to when you said incentivize non-compliance?
correct. And the way that was originally identified was based on the number of suites, $100, a fine of $100 per suite each year. So in this case, it started at $2,400 for the 24 suites. And then each year that it remains in non-compliance with the 4304 bylaw, that penalty doubles. So it goes from, in this case, 2,400 to 4,800 the following year, plus the original 24. And then from 4,800 to 9,600 and double and double and double. And so these fees have never been paid in full.
And it was the first year.
2017
2016.
or 16, sorry. Yeah, thank you, Jeff. And those fees doubled all the way up until 2021, 22, at which point we only have these 9 properties remaining. And the department felt that continued doubling was almost not worth it, because we're already at well over $200 and some thousand for this property. So they stopped for these last properties of doubling, and it plateaued at the number owing. So these last few properties, most of them still have to pay those fees. This is one of them.
And is there any mechanism to apply those fees to taxation?
We are working on that in the background with legal. Yeah, we have been exploring that option.
And why only now?
Just the will of the department, I suppose, direction from our director, and looking at it in whole. It wasn't something that was originally part of the process.
But it is now.
We are exploring it still. We haven't firmed it up through legal yet.
And the conditions that will have you issue the order to the third.
So in 2021, we issued an order to obtain permits, and that is part of the package as well. That order was issued on November 19th, 2021. And that was in relation to, at that time, still continued non-compliance for having built these additional suites. And so that also was in response to an inspection where it found electrical wiring hanging from almost every area of the building, from the ceilings. So we asked for 4 things in this 2021 order. One of them being retain a licensed electrician to work on this electrical problem. That part actually was attempted, and there is a permit that was taken out, and there was work that was done to bring it into enough compliance that it was seen as forward momentum.
Right.
The other 3 areas where they needed to engage the services of design professionals, give us the drawings of what this now looks like with your 35 suites, and or anything that's beyond the 24, because and Jeff might be able to explain this a little better. It's his area, but the 24 suites is what is allowed under the bylaw, and anything that goes beyond that requires a lot more work by the applicant. So maybe I can turn it over to him.
So the bylaw under the 24 suites that would have been identified back in the early 80s, mid 80s. They had to meet 4 different schedules in that 4304 bylaw. The 2 missing ones were schedules C and D, which dealt with egress and compartmentation. And so the requirements under the bylaw are not as
Egress and
compartmentation, fire compartments. So the bylaw itself isn't as stringent as the current code. And so those 24 suites have brought into compliance with 4304 bylaw, would have met a minimum level of safety under that standard. Any additional suites would now bring the building subject to current code. And so that's where that architect would have to assess how the current code would apply and what level of upgrading would be necessary if it could be done to accommodate additional suites.
Are there any other fire safety matters that we've observed that would prompt us to go down the road with board review? Or we just talked about?
Well, they would stem. There's a few other areas, include the dividing of the rooms themselves would have to be fire separated from each other. So that'd be a light fire safety issue. What levels of detection or suppression might be in those areas hasn't been verified through permit and through inspection. And egress as well would have to be evaluated. Probably the biggest piece is that increasing from 24 to 35 suites, there would be other levels of upgrading that haven't been determined yet. So the architect that was retained had approached it for compliance with the 24 suites. So there hasn't been a design professional, an architect or other, to evaluate what would be need to be done to increase the number of suites. As well, we're still awaiting a structural engineer as well to look at the exterior stair that we're looking at placing as part of the exit system.
Okay.
Thank you. You mentioned that there had been promises made over time, I guess, since 2016, 2017. And were those promises made in writing?
Yeah, we if we were to pull the email records, yes, it would be. We're continuing to work on it. All of our officer notes when they engage with the owner or for the on-site inspections, they all reflect that I'm working on it. I'm working on it. As if I can put that flavor to it. Yeah.
And Councillor Duncan was talking about, you're talking with him about egresses and compartmentation.
Yes.
Okay, and it sounds like you kind of have a timeline in mind. That's the impression I get while I'm listening to you answering Councillor Duncan. And you're talking about architect would have to evaluate, talking about electrical evaluation. Seems like, is there a timeline in your mind? And I have to admit, I don't know to what extent that's relevant here. But it seems like you're talking about a timeline. I don't know if that's relevant at this moment, but I suspect it would be sort of one of those practical things you're going to have to deal with. Having said that, you're saying those promises made have been made over the last 7 years, if not more. There's been a change of ownership since 2016, or same owners?
Same owner since 2012.
Since 2012. Okay, thank you very much.
I have no further questions at this point in time.
We'll have an opportunity to talk with the administration again. It was terrific.
Okay, so first we'll hear from the appellant, Akeem Kambamba, who is speaking in support of the appeal. Akeem, if you'd like to just go to the end of the table there. And Akeem has also provided the documentation being circulated right now.
Thanks.
Right there. And you have up to 10 minutes for your presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Thank you very much, council members. Thank you very much for the PP. Yeah. Because the time is limited, I'll go straight to the issues that have been raised. Although there's a number of other issues that I wanted to bring forward.
We'll be able to ask you questions as well, so
Yes.
thank you.
I would like to first of all say that the Manwin has had a lot of issues. I came on the scene in 2016. Although this property was bought in 2012, and I was part of those involved in 2012. Unfortunately, in 2016, there was a breakdown in the relationship of the original owners. And I inherited all these problems in 2016 because that's when I actually came on the scene. In 2012, the owners was me, somebody called Carlos, and an individual called Ivan. He's a Chinese guy. Carlos came in with his son. Now, what happened is we had a breakdown in the relationship, so the three people moved out. And I effectively had to bring in new owners, people who are interested in keeping this property alive in 2016. So I inherited a huge problem. The rooms had already been erected, those rooms that have been mentioned, and the person who was involved in the erection was a maintenance officer who kept in a very good relationship with the previous individuals who vacated the property. Now, I would like to say this. I should not be blamed for the issues that happened before because there was a breakdown in the relationship. However, I assumed responsibility in 2016 to handle the problems of the Manwin. And I brought in 3 innocent people who had nothing, who was not aware about the serious problem that had happened. So those rooms that were developed were done by previous owner. And the construction person who did it has passed on. So he's not here to speak on that behalf. Now, when I took over, I did get the information that, yes, PPDF wants to inspect the building. And they did come. I remember 2 gentlemen dressed in black. So I took them around and I told them, yes, there were rooms developed by the previous owners, but they are no longer here on the scene. However, I'm willing to work with you to address that problem. And so, right away, while dealing with the other issues in the hotel, I assumed responsibility for this, and I started to search for architects. The first architects, I don't know if it's good to mention their names. Is that permissible? Probably not. But I dealt with about 5 architects. First one walked away with my deposit. After several months, then he came forward and said, Akim, sorry, I cannot continue with this project. Second one was a very nice individual who was willing to help. I approached him, Stephen Colmer. Unfortunately, he passed on while he was handling my project. He was willing to address the issues that the city had raised. Third one, Mr. White. He also, so when Steve passed on, I had to look for a third person. And I did. I tried, but this individual came, he looked at the property, it took several weeks. Then he came back, says he was not going to handle it. Then I had ran into Ed Leninski, his communicator view. He tried to get the property going. And he actually produced some drawings. But then recently, in the last few months, he pulled out. So now I have a new team that is handling the file, and members from PPDF. We actually had a meeting, and these individuals are now willing to help us get this property into compliance. They've actually helped me to move the step forward. And I'm in communication with the department of PPDF, and all I need is time, given the circumstance of this problem, to get this in compliance. It's not, I do not take it lightly that these issues to do with the city exist. So that's why I appeal to you all to allow me to have this process going so that this building can be brought in compliance, hopefully by summer, the end of summer. I'm in disagreement with Mr. Kelly there, who says that the building is totally not on compliance. The fire department has the reports that indicate that we do have no deficiencies that would impact somebody's life in the building. Everything relative to the current situation, if there was a fire, there would be no issues. In fact, we are here because of a fire that happened in room number 17. Number 17, there was a fire in there. All the sprinklers, the sprinkler in that room killed the fire. So there has been nobody who has died of a fire emergency in the Manwin Hotel. Annual reports reflect that all deficiencies were fixed. All the fire suppression systems are working, sprinklers are working, and we have 2 emergency exits that are functional. The third one is the shaky one, which is described as having the issue to do with the stairs in the back. That is already in the consideration for compliance. I've already approached contractors who have given me estimates on how much this thing is going to cost. Now, before the time runs out, I want to make sure that council, first of all, has compassion and let the people who've been living in the Manwin for 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, 5 years to come back. And the history is I've been using the revenues that I make from the hotel straight into fixing the hotel, step by step. The banks do not lend any money to hotels anymore. So I'm not taking the money. I'm not even paying myself. Every single dollar has gone towards fixing the hotel. It fixed all the electrical wires that Mr. Kelly has mentioned here. The building in terms of electrical fire will not happen. We spent $30,000 cleaning up all those hanging wires to put the building in safe condition. There is one more permit. The work has been done. But when I called PPDF to come and inspect it, they said we should get the person who pulled the permit. But this person is working out of the city. I said, can you come and inspect it? The electrician can come, inspect it. I'll show him the work done. We have the list. Up to now, it hasn't been done. They haven't come. Yet, that was a small part of the electrical work left. We've done the sprinklers 100%. They work perfectly. Talking about those rooms, there is only about maybe 8 that were affected. So, and those 8, I appeal to you, should be the ones left vacant. We can go today and agree that people can come in, occupy the 24 that meet the code, and let me continue with the work of fixing the hotel. Mr. Kelly talked about non-payment of the fines. I talked with somebody in the city, and we have an arrangement. Every month, money is coming out of the bank account, going to the city. We have evidence for that. So we cannot be told that we are not paying anything. I have been paying every single month. $1,000 is being deducted from my account, from the hotel account, to pay for these fines. That's a reasonable arrangement, given the fact that the people that I house in the hotel do not provide a lot of revenue for the hotel.
Are you able to wrap in?
Yes, I'm going to wrap it up.
Okay.
So please, kindly, I want us to look at the whole picture. We should not leave people out in the cold. PPDF came in the middle of winter, minus 40 degrees. Some of my tenants are still staying by the river. That's not fair. That's not Canadian. If I had abandoned PPDF, then we can say, okay, Akim, you are not working with us. You are not cooperating. Let us end this relationship. So I please ask you to look at compassion. There's a number of other issues that I wanted, but you can ask questions, and if possible, I'll inject it in. Thank you.
Thank you. I was looking for some clarification. I'm not sure if you're interested, Councillor Schreier, if there's members of the fire to confirm with an eye the comments here. Yeah, okay, I'll have them come to the table then. I will. I just want to. We'll have some questions for you too. Good morning.
Good morning.
I just have your folks introduce yourselves and then ask questions. I got some comments made.
Good morning, Councillor. I am the Director of Fire Prevention. My name is Sherry Reich.
Hi, my name is John Del Cruz. I'm a Senior Fire Prevention Officer.
Okay, so our appellant here today said that he is in complete compliance with essentially anything fire related regarding egress, compartmentalization of the units, any fire concerns, comments.
I can comment that our inspector has been involved extensively with the appellant. He has been cooperative with the department. He's generally, when we ask him to do something, it does get done. Sprinkler system, fire alarm system are in compliance and with Manitoba Fire Code. So the inspection, testing, maintenance are all on track, and there are no deficiencies on those systems. We do have some fire separation issues that are being addressed, but he is working with us to get those done.
And when did that compliance start?
We inspect these locations frequently. So in November he was written up for the fire alarm system.
Yeah.
In December, regarding the fire at Suite 17, we were there for a post-fire inspection. So our inspector went there, and of course there's the deficiencies in the fire alarm system and sprinkler system, and those are all been corrected. And the latest inspection we had was on Wednesday. So everything's confirmed, just as Mr. Kabamba said.
Are there any other concerns regarding fire, life safety at this point in time?
Our department is responsible to maintain compliance to the 4304 bylaw. Generally, a report comes out of the NDR colleagues. We don't have one of those yet for this building, so this is a little bit of a tricky one, but with regard to what we're responsible for inspecting, he is in compliance with our branch. Again, we do have one outstanding violations for some fire separations. He's working on those.
Thank you. Questions?
Sure, thank you, Chair Duncan. So there was issues of egress, at least with another department, and on that basis, egress can be a question of fire safety. And in that respect, are you aware of any resolution on that as far as fire and paramedic fire safety is concerned?
So that rear stair.
The rear stairs, so those are existing. And again, we usually refer to the final report. Again, as mentioned prior, we have no final report. So, but those are existing, and that's all we can say about that.
And these repairs, I guess, according to the standards of fire code and fire safety, they've been taken care of, that interaction and the forthcoming work has been done in what's the timeline on that? The last year or two, or the last 7 years since 2016? When did all that start regarding fire
System and sprinkler system are annual requirements. They have to always be the fire alarm system, the life safety systems always have to be in good repair and functioning. When we find them in disrepair, they are immediate requirements to have them repaired. That has been done with this individual. Additionally, annually, they have to be checked by a fire alarm company, sprinkler company. When we ask him to do that work, it gets done. So in December, they were noted as deficient, and by January, we had all the paperwork indicating that deficiencies are being corrected.
Okay, I have no other questions at this time for suppression vote on the inspection. However, I do for the applicant starting the appellants here today. So you gave us a timeline of becoming owner in 2012, correct?
I
Partner.
was a partner in 2012.
Okay.
But our relationship broke down immediately because and I'll tell you why. These people wanted to pursue the criminal way
Sure.
to make money.
So.
And I
2012,
wasn't happy with that.
Yeah, 2012, 2016, so 4 years approximately you were with that group, and then in 2016, that relationship broke apart?
Yes.
Okay, so if you can rewind back to 2012, what was your first impression of the property when you got involved financially?
Well, the hotel was doing reasonably well because the bar was busy, the vendor was busy, and the rooms were good. That's why we got involved. But then after COVID really impacted on the hotel. That's why there was a slowdown in me picking up to get these deficiencies corrected. That was one reason. And the second reason being these architects, professional architects, refusing to help me out when I desperately needed them to correct the problems from PPDF. Yeah. And honest truth, if I wasn't really serious about it, I wouldn't have paid all these $16,000 to these architects. And all they did is consult, tell me this, tell me that, and then they back up. They didn't want to put their signature on an old building like the Manuel Hotel.
So,
But finally we found
Public Service gave us timelines here around the 4304 bylaw. And it looks like you were the owner by your own admission in 2016 when there were still 1,300 plus that were in violation of that. Do you remember receiving communications to get into compliance with the 4304 bylaw?
Well, the person I dealt with, I think he has probably retired from the department, but somebody did come and visit me, and we started right away dealing with it. But again, it took me time to get into the whole thing because the architects delaying me. Yeah.
So you said that the hotel was doing well though until the pandemic?
Until yes. But after the pandemic, that's it. And then also, the hotel lost money to pay out those individuals that left.
If I could just ask members of the gallery to either silence their phones or step out of the room here, that'd be much appreciated. All right,
And
so.
sorry, I just wanted to confirm his
Yeah,
answer.
please.
You're saying something about payout for those that left?
Yes, before those people had to leave, the hotel had to come up with at least $100,000 to pay them off.
I'm sorry, you had to pay out the residents?
To pay out the
Other ownership.
other owners.
Oh, the other owners.
Yeah.
Okay, pay out the
So
owners.
the hotel lost about $100,000, which could have gone into rectifying some of these problems. But it was an arrangement in the courts. I had no control over it, although I fought them.
So, if my memory serves me well, in 2020, the pandemic, spring-ish of 2020, so that would have started impacting. So, again, I look back to this timeline, given you were the owner in 2016 when 1,300 plus properties were still not in compliance with the 4304 bylaw. What was going on between 2016 and 2020? I understand $100,000, but
I want to be absolutely honest with you. I never got that communication from about these buildings that had to be brought into compliance. All that I knew that there was a problem was when the gentleman from PPDF came and visited me and said, Akim.
right.
Yeah,
So again, okay, so you're saying you're not aware of that. However, from 2017, the Public Service is telling us that they visited your property over 100 times and don't have an accurate number of just how many emails or letters were sent to. Do you have any comment?
I'm not aware of the 100 times, but I'm aware that the communication with emails.
Okay.
Absolutely honest. I don't know anything about the 100 visits. I don't think they were that much. But I had
have you received the fines for $1,000
yes.
for 7 tickets?
Yes,
When
but
do those start?
It would be right after that gentleman departed from their department. I don't know what his name was. I can't remember. but,
It's off next ed.
We have
right?
a year of
2019, 2020,
Yes.
2021, 2022.
And
Yes.
then,
But we've been paying the fines through the collection agency. They've been deducting every month. I don't know if,
you're
Mr. Kelly,
you weren't aware of the 4304 bylaw,
no,
but since 2016, $2,400 doubling every year has been applied. So what
yes.
did you think that fine was for?
Well, I got that, but I didn't get an official letter saying that there was 1,400 buildings to be brought into compliance. All I got was the fine.
Yeah.
And then right after a while, I started making arrangements to pay because the city sent the request to collections. So I've been paying collections and I hope they've been receiving it. I've been paying it every month.
When did you start paying?
I would say at least 3 years ago. Yeah, I talked to the cashier in the PPDF and they told me that, yes, I could make arrangements with
At any point in time, have you tried to sell this property?
okay. The Main Street project approached me, but they didn't want to give me anything for it. All they said is, can you donate it to us? And I don't think my partners would be interested.
So I'm just going to give you some of my experience sitting on these committees when we have folks like you on a smaller scale come forward and say, I didn't know that the previous owner did all this work, but then they're held by the department to say, it's your responsibility when you take it on.
Yes.
So, and we have, I'm giving this some consideration, but we have time and time again had to deny the appeal because ultimately when you become the owner of any property, it is your responsibility to be in compliance. So I'm looking at this timeline, processing this here to say it's now 13 years since you've owned this property.
I understand. Again, my issue was with the architects. I expressed my sincere commitment to this property since Ryan Baxter, I was dealing with him. I even kept sending him emails. There's no way, these people are professionals. There's only so much I can do. In fact, I became so desperate that I told him, what are you doing? You're going to put me in trouble with the city.
Well,
and they kept saying, yes, we're working on it. Yes, we're working on it. I approached 5 of them, lost $16,000 in the process. Please take that into account.
and I hear you on that.
Yeah.
And again, I revert back to other decisions made in the past, just in regards to the same kind of thing on a smaller scale of somebody saying, please, I didn't know. And that's one single family household. Here you're responsible for 24 suites that is currently being, or was currently being occupied by 35. I don't know if there's 2 people, 3 people, how many people were in each, but that even puts more ownership on. Yeah. Okay, so 35 individuals. So I'm going to take that into consideration here as we process this information. I have no other questions at this point in time for you. Councillor Schreier.
Thank you. And Mr. Kambamba, you said that you've been making payments to a collection agency for $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
And how long have you been doing that?
I wish I'd known and brought the records, but it's a minimum of at least 3 years.
So 3 years, you've been paying $1,000 a month.
Yes. And
This
this was
public service says they have an answer for you.
Sure.
yes, I have an arrangement with the manager of PPDF told me to make arrangements for these payments.
Right.
Okay. And we'll see if they have something to say.
And
I can confirm that he has been paying $1,000 a month to the department that gets put towards the outstanding 4304 fees. I don't know about the $7,000 that's outstanding for the penalty notices that are sitting with a collection agency. That part I'm not sure of, but I can confirm that he has paid $29,500 of the $229,000 owing. So he's got a balance with us of 199,600.
Okay, so he is making payments of $1,000 a month. And he's been doing this for over 2 years.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, so over 2 years, and he's done approximately, I don't know, about 13-15% of what's owing, something like that. Yeah, okay.
I mean, that's not that quick, Counselor.
Well, and then, yeah, I was trying to figure this out. Okay, so, maybe not even that. Anyway, so payments are forthcoming on a regular basis that you acknowledge.
Yes.
But we're not talking about fines today. We're talking about safety and we're talking about evacuation, not about whether he's owing money. Is this just about pure evacuation? I probably will have further questions for the administration on that. I guess when they're another.
Any other questions for the volunteer?
Sure. And Mr. Kambamba, you said that it was the architects that you hired, that you were obliged to hire.
Yeah.
Because of the issue of how many suites you're allowed to have.
Yes.
And therefore the architects come into play because around design over 24 suites.
Yeah.
And the architects held you back. You're saying despite paying them $16,000.
Yes.
They held you back in terms of having proper design. All right, okay. I'm not sure what to make of that.
I can assure you that the new ones are making a big move on that. And I'm sure that the last communication I got from them is that to tell the appeal board that work is in progress. And I think the manager of PPDF was in that meeting. We had a Zoom meeting, and he assured them that they assured him that they were working on it.
Okay. But you were not aware of communication from the city between 2016 and 2020 when they say there were dozens, approaching about 100 actions of communication or other action in interaction with this building?
No, the only interactions I had consistently was emails between me and Mr. Ryan Beckstead.
Okay.
That I know very well. I have them in my computer.
And that between 2016 and 2020?
As soon as he came on this, no, before Ryan Beckstead, there was another individual.
Okay.
A fellow old guy. I don't know, I think he's probably retired from your department. Can you remind us his name? I don't know. Anyway, but I had a very good relationship with Ryan Beckstead. I kept updating him on what's happening with the architects. And thus I appeal to you that if you are even prepared to ask PPDF that we do not take in people into those rooms that they suspect to have problems with the walls. At least allow those rooms that were compliant to be occupied so I can use those revenues to finish the deficiencies. That's all I ask. It's not a big ask. There is compliant rooms.
But you're asking to use the income from 36 suites or
No.
35 instead of 24?
From now on, from 24. I see. The 24 that were compliant. And the fire separations affect only a small fraction of the rooms, maybe about a third. So those rooms, I'm prepared to work with PPDF. We will not put anybody in there so that those revenues can at least sustain the building and I bring it into compliance. That's all I ask.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm willing to work very hard to get to satisfy the needs of the city. You have to really understand my situation. It's a very...
Yeah, we've heard you.
Yeah.
I appreciate your proof. Clerk?
Okay, so next to be heard is Ken McFarland in support of the appeal. So Ken, if you'd like to make your way up.
I'm basically here just to talk about safety issues. You guys have, like, I'm a resident there. Okay? So I know firsthand what's going on there day to day, you know. And like I was telling people, the different newscasters, it's not an unsafe place to be.
It's not a what, sorry?
Not an unsafe place to be. All right, being out in the cold is unsafe to be. All right, having to go to a homeless shelter can be unsafe to be. But the Manuel Hotel is not unsafe. We have plumbing, we have lights, we have heat, we even have cable and internet. I mean, so, I don't know anything about all this 2016 stuff or anything back there and about these architects. But I know that we do have issues with some of the tenants that are in there. They break things, all right? The team's always going behind them afterwards, fixing windows, fixing doors, fixing walls. But he can't control, and he won't throw them out, all right? He's not prejudiced against anybody being in there. But some of these people are unstable. Maybe they should be somewhere else. But no, you can't. They won't take him at McLaren. They won't take him at Northern. Right? They'll get on their case right away. They'll be out the door into a homeless shelter or out in the bus shack. He lets everybody come in there. Yes, it's bad, and sometimes it gets messy in there. But at least it's warm. Right? And me, myself, right, I got a good room. I got my own bathroom and everything. And I try to help them out a little bit with some of the plumbing stuff. But yeah, like I said, all I'm here is to speak about safety. People say it's not safe to be in there. There's needles around there. Well, I walk into Sloan Mission, I can find needles too. All right, go in their bathroom and find needles too. Main Street Project, Salvation Army, we're in that same area. Right? So to have a door without somebody literally standing there, right? People are to come up from the project when they're cold. Like when they're overflowing that project and they can't get in the Salvation Army, we find people sleeping in our hallway. But you don't kick them out, right? Yeah, if they're a problem or anything like that, yeah, they're gone. But if it's 40 below outside, it's not going to make them go. All right? And we need that place. We got a little bit of, we got a home. It may not be the best home in the world. And for some of us, like myself, soon I hope I'll be moving up and out. Right? But for some of us, we're going to do that. But some of them, they really can't go nowhere else because nobody else wants them. Yeah.
Anything else? We have some questions here for you. If you have anything
No,
else,
go ahead. Ask me anything you want.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Schreier.
Yeah, great, thank you. Since you're here to attest as a resident, as a witness to the place, by your perspective, in your understanding, how many of these suites are full? Do you recognize that it's 35 suites here in the building? Is that how?
There was 35 suites, right? Prior to this, but there's not 35 people there no more.
Okay. From your point of view, how many suites do you think there are?
Occupied right now?
Yeah, we're dealing with just the number of suites that are there. We've got to
Okay,
deal with
the number of suites
administration.
is 35. Right?
Okay, there are 35 suites, and how many do you think are occupied?
As of right now or before?
Both, if you can, if you have an idea.
Well, before, we had probably 30 people. That's an average. But now, no. I think now we got 10, maybe 12 people come out. A couple of them are handicapped.
Okay.
Right? We got the guy, 34, he's handicapped. Right? This guy, likes to swear a lot, but he's a nice guy. But he's handicapped. And we have another guy, The other side of the building, the side of Chef too. He came back there. I haven't seen him for a while. He might have gotten a different place. But I don't know.
So you're saying from your point of view, and I'm not holding you to this,
No, it's fine.
but just from, since you're talking about this stuff, that's why you're here. Talk about being a witness on the inside of the building, and you're saying, that, there's meant to be around 24 or so.
Yeah, that's what I
legitimate
that's what I heard.
suites, and you're saying there's only about a dozen residents right now?
At the most, yeah.
Right now, there's at the most a dozen residents.
Well, I mean, we did, on that date in question, we did walk through the building, right? We tell everybody they had to leave.
When was that?
But again, it's the middle of winter, 17th of last month.
Okay.
But again, it's the middle of winter. I mean,
So we could be talking about as few as maybe 10 residents at this moment.
yeah.
Okay.
And then, like he said, right? Because them saying that, right? Welfare is not giving him nothing, right?
Welfare's not giving whom nothing?
Keith, he's welfare. Nobody's supplying him with any money right now. Okay.
Oh, I see, because of what's going on with
Yeah,
the city.
and
this
also-
conflict, they're.
Everything, we're not getting mail or anything because of that 17th thing. I was expecting a healthcare card.
Right.
That never showed up. And my issue from EIA, I went over there and they told me,
Employment insurance? Sorry, you're talking about employment insurance?
no,
sorry.
welfare.
Okay, excuse me.
I went over there and I said, well, what happened? They said, well, we're not sending anything over there. So they then sent me my T5 or whatever that thing is.
Directly to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
over there. No, they didn't hand it to me. They sent it over there.
Over to Manway.
But not until I went over there and talked to them
Okay.
and told them I was still in the building. But again, the rent and all that stuff, right, is not going down. Until I guess this thing was all,
Have people left the place? How long have you been living there, sorry?
how long have I been living there?
Yeah.
About 5 years since I've,
And in the last, so you can tell me in the last year, because we're talking about 36 suites. There's meant to be 24. You're talking about less than 12 people living there. Have people been leaving? Is there less people living there now than there was a year ago or 6
well,
months
yeah,
ago? or
because
5 years?
everybody got told to leave on the 17th.
So they left. And so.
A lot of people did,
Yeah,
right?
20 people or
And
something.
slowly a couple of them come back.
Okay. So how many people do you think left?
Well, like I said, there's about 10, so say 20, 25.
And a few came back. Okay. Thank you very much, Ben.
No problem.
Seeing no other questions, thank you for your time today, Ken.
No problem. Happy to help out.
Thanks.
Okay, just confirming that no one else in the gallery is registered to speak in support of the appeal. Okay, so we'll move on to opposition. Vivian Ketchum is speaking in opposition to the appeal, and Vivian's with us in person today.
Good morning.
Morning. I didn't expect to be speaking, but
You don't have to speak.
No, I am.
If you'd
I
like
am.
to say a few
I-
minutes, You have 10 minutes.
I feel really strongly about this place. I've been a caretaker at 563 William Avenue. I sat on the committee at Winnipeg Inner City Missions, and I got to see how a building is well run. And any issues of fire safety were up to code and that, so I got to see how a building is well run and how tenants are kept safe. This is not the case here at the Manwin. Before I do speak on about the condition of the hotel, I want to say I'm rather disgusted by you.
Please,
I know.
excuse me,
Okay,
excuse me,
yeah,
excuse me. All your comments will be directed through myself,
yeah,
not to the gallery.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
okay. I was just reading something about in the of the exhibits and that were presented. There's a lot of vulnerable Indigenous women out there. I have family members that are many of them. And this is the letter that was written, one of them. It said the clients have sex outside, disposing condoms all over the place, and we have pictures. I'm concerned about the pictures. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Those are Indigenous women, and that they're vulnerable. They shouldn't be having pictures taken of them. And that's all I'm gonna say on that matter. I think about last year, me and a group of community members concerned about the state of the Manwin and the residents, especially Indigenous women. We went to go visit the whole.
If you folks have to have a conversation, I'd ask for you to have that out in the lobby area. Thank you.
Yeah, we went there with a group of community members, and I was surprised that we needed safety people to go in there with us, and I was very shocked. I stepped into the lobby and I saw graffiti, people using drugs. I went up the narrow hallway. You go through the door and there's a narrow hallway, and the stairway, the railing is very rickety, and that wasn't safe. It was dark and there was wires hanging down, and the smell hits you not only of body fluids, but the mold in that. And I felt bad I didn't have a mask. And then as I went up, I did see a lot of drug use. There was a couple of rooms being used as drug dens. And when I worked as a frontline support worker before, and I've walked around the areas, and I know that when you're using drugs and that you nod off, when you do it, drugs, you light the bubble with a match or a lighter, whatever, and you light it and you cause a little flame. And when you nod off, that candle or whatever you're using will kick it, you can knock it over, cause a fire, which is one of the many fire hazards this building could have. And I know that when some of the rooms that I saw were cluttered, and I know they would have a hard time getting out of that room. There was white electrical boxes outside the hallways, in the hallways. People were plugging in stuff for heaters and that, for TVs, electrical appliances. There was a lot of overload of appliances in the out hallways, and some of the rooms were bolted with thick locks, chains. And I can just imagine how hard the fire department would have to try to get through to that room. That would cost time. Because I think you only have for a regular house, you probably have less than 8 minutes to get these people out. This is a large building. You probably wouldn't have 8 minutes. And there was a guy in a wheelchair in a cluttered room. And his window was all boarded up. And I bet you if there was a fire in that place, he'd be the first one to die. There was garbage, people cooking in the hallway. The back stairwell was full of garbage. People just toss out their garbage, and that entranceway is usually blocked with garbage. And we did a walkthrough. And again, these are not only tenants, these are also tenants that are living in the rooms that are doing drugs or have cluttered rooms. And some try to keep their rooms pretty clean. But I'm seeing people trying to keep warm by putting plastic over the windows. Some didn't even have walls. You could see the insulation in that. And the bathroom didn't have a door in it. It smelled awful. The bathroom floor was soggy. We were kind of concerned that we're going to fall through it. Just the amount of mold that you could smell in there was horrible. And there was an older woman there that had breathing issues. When I was done walking through, as I put on my ribbon skirt and I was trying to cleanse the building of any bad spirits or anything that was happening, because we heard of people getting killed in there. So I lit my smudge bowl And I walked down the hallway and I was surprised that the sprinkler and I didn't set off the smoke alarm with the amount of smudge I was using. So I mentioned that to the group that I was with. I said, how come the smoke alarm or that didn't go off? So go ahead.
Sorry, I
Yeah,
just want to make sure that you're done.
yeah, I was just
Still have
thinking,
time.
yeah, I do have
Please.
Okay.
a close family member that might have go in and out of there, and I'm quite concerned. She's in fact could be my daughter, could be any of my close family woman friends that could be going in that building. I don't want to get a notification that my loved one, our family member, our friend died in a building fire. That's what I'm always keeping an eye on every night. We have people that are close by, and sometimes we get text messages. Oh, there's the fire department is there, the police are there, and we kind of hold our breath. Is it someone that we know? Is it our daughter? Is it our son? So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So hand up there, Councilor Fryer has a question.
Yep. Thank you, Chair Duncan. And Vivian, so you got professional experience and you've got personal knowledge of this building as well. Are you a resident there, or how do you know?
No, I'm just a community member. We all got together with some other grassroots members and to take a look at, we heard how bad it was.
Mhm.
And we want to raise concerns about the hotel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that since January? Or
We did it probably in the fall, I think. We went in there, and I know that we took the media with them. And I think a lot of us probably saw the videos of the media.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you did this, did it have any direct relationship to the city's issues with the owners of the building, or was this a completely separate thing that you went in there to talk
Well,
about?
it was also the state of the people that do the hotel and the safety concern. I went in there because I was checking the building structure, like I know I had some experience as a caretaker in that, and I was checking the fire alarm, when it was last updated, and that, but the others people were checking the state of the residents. I was checking the building basically.
Fair enough, through your point of view, through your knowledge, et cetera, if fair enough, Vivian. Thank you thanks very much for your presentation
Yep.
today. And I will be asking some questions based on what you told us.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just have one question for you. You spoke about attending other addresses that may serve individuals who are dealing with some of the struggles that these folks are. What do those buildings look like, and what kind of operations are happening there?
Oh, they're not as bad, but and if there's any issues, they're addressed immediately. So that, yeah.
And are those privately run by an individual, or are they publicly
Well-
owned by the government?
No, not by the government, privately owned. Like when I was living at 563 William, it was a condo.
Okay.
And I was a caretaker, and the condo owners made sure kept it up to code. And by 415 Logan Avenue is a church, is run by the Presbyterian Church.
Okay,
So
thank you. See, Councilor Fryer, I have a one-time question.
Ken McFarland mentioned there might be as many as 10 people living there at this point. When was the last time you were there?
probably in the fall.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
before the evacuation started.
Yeah, we can't.
Okay.
We tried to go other times, but we're blocked. Where there's we're not allowed in there. So, and we need safety people to go in there, like other male community members to go in with us because of safety issues.
I don't know what to say about that in
Yeah.
terms of this private building and
Yeah.
who's allowed in and who's not. I don't know what to say about that nonetheless.
Mhm.
So you were there in the fall. How many people do you think were living there in the fall? This is not unusual.
Yeah, this was, there was some, I know 2 rooms are being used as drug dens. There was quite 5 or 6 people in the room smoking up. Probably, I've heard of allegedly that there was double booking.
I don't, you know, what, I
Yeah.
appreciate I don't think that we should
Yeah.
speculate. She doesn't live there.
No, fair enough.
This
Yeah.
kind of visit, I don't think it's
Yeah.
on her to give us an accurate.
No, it's not. Just looking at, trying to think what's happened in the last couple of months, this was
Okay.
transpiring. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Mhm.
Appreciate it. Madam Clerk?
Okay, so there's no one else registered to speak in opposition to the appeal, just confirming that no one else in the gallery wishes to speak in opposition to this appeal. All right, and there's no one registered for information, no one looking to speak with respect to the appeal. The appellant will have the opportunity to rebut comments at the end. So if there are questions for the public service before the appellant rebuttal.
I have a question, but if you'd like to start us off.
Sure. A few things here. So it's a little complicated, and thanks for the administration to bring us to this point in terms of a rather important decision we've got to make here. In terms of the report given by Fire and Paramedic Services here today, they said that they were within code, the fire and safety code. Do you have anything to say about that? I know your obligation is larger than that. But do you have anything to say in terms of what fire and paramedics and Sherry Reach just said?
Certainly, thank you through you, Mr. Chair. I think it's important to note that we acknowledge that fire has done their job and their inspections, and we acknowledge that. But what we don't have is how did the 35 suites become all sprinklered or fire protected when it requires permits to put those sprinklers in and to install that and ensure that the fire separations are in place. So it just rotates back to this work. The work has been done without permit. We don't know the extent or the quality of that work.
Fair enough. And so fire and paramedics might have their own priorities when it comes to evaluating this, which is separate from your job, which includes permits, designs, and things like that. So we're on this so that we can all be on the same page there. Okay, thank you. And someone mentioned, I believe, that Ken McFarland, I believe, mentioned handicapped. Used the term. Do you have any relevance? Does that play out in this case? Can you tell us?
Jeff, you want to speak to that one?
Yeah, the code doesn't have any specific relevance to that. It just looks at code requirements.
Thank you.
Just in regards to some of the other comments that were made by those that were in opposition to the appeal regarding the overall condition of the building side. I know that you both spoke about the electrical. Does property development weigh into mold issues? I know you folks talked about the compartmentation of the actual suites. We've heard of there's holes in walls that go through into other suites. Where some egress points are blocked by garbage. Those rooms that are being occupied by maybe tenants, maybe people that are in there exploiting individuals or trafficking narcotics. Comments from I know that that's a bit wide range of concerns.
Right. We'll confine our comments to the condition of the building. And again, it rotates back to our order to provide a building conditions assessment. And that has yet to be provided in any meaningful fashion for the entire building. And not anecdotally, but I mean, we have had our staff in there and we have seen the conditions that are there. So
there's no overall assessment of the building at this point in time?
There is only a partial assessment that I believe we've been given, and that one still sticks with 24 suites. But to be fair, and the author of that report limited their report to not having been on site. They were provided information by others, but they themselves in the report state that they weren't present on site to do that assessment.
So
And I don't know how that works.
this came forward then almost exclusively for egress, compartmentation, and electrical.
And overall compliance with 4304 bylaw. Yeah.
So we don't have comment from the public service on the overall situation with the building.
Outside of the fact that we have, like one of our original orders in 2018 was trying to maintain or achieve compliance with 4304, which was still dealing with the egress and compartmentation issues. The more recent 2021, once it discovered additional suites, required it either to be brought back into compliance with 4304 of those 24 suites, or if there was additional measures that have to be put in place to bring it to compliance to support the additional suites. So there's also varying things with health and other departments that will have their own requirements. Our focus was on compliance with the bylaw.
I guess that's, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but
Yeah.
that's where I'm not following it. So will we provide comments at all about health issues?
Not directly, however, as
Who would?
We would make the referral to mental health or community services for under the livability bylaw.
Okay.
We would make those referrals the same as they would
So
refer
now
back.
the health being outside of our jurisdiction, has there been any comment made to community services or livability?
Yes, community service is active in the building. I'm aware that they have ongoing dialogue with the owner on livability issues there as well.
But we don't have a timeline on.
I'm not as familiar with that one, no.
Okay, so we'll stick to the matter at hand here then from property and development standpoints, and then I'm sure that community services will bring us to the attention of the owner, or we will see a potential appeal if there's any type of order.
All I know is that they've issued orders in the past. I don't know the state or status of those orders right now,
Okay,
but they are working with them.
okay. I have no other questions. We will hear from the appellant again, but Councillor Schreier.
Yeah, thank you. Just to get it as clear as we can before we hear the appellant. And that is, so right now, the owner of the building is making payments on their fines every month, about $1,000 a month.
Yes,
Okay, so they are, is that to the is that the deal worked out with the city, the amount that they're paying, $1,000 a month to the collection agency, I believe?
I'm not sure on the details of how that came about.
Do you have, as you sit here now, to report on this, do you have any concerns, any problems with the payment arrangement that the owner of the building has with the city?
No, not
Okay,
No.
so your issue is not with lack of payment of fines. You're saying that's not the concern. We're talking about livability and safety, and that is the reason for the evacuation.
Correct.
And we heard today, and of course, it's not official, but as many as 10 people might be living there at this time.
Yeah, I've heard it's higher than that. I've heard lower than that.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the status is right now.
All right. So I can't help it. I understand there's a margin here, and there's no point in me to assume the numbers, but I'm going with the it's all on public record. What we heard today, we'll see if the owner has anything to say in terms of the numbers we've heard. So as many as 10. That can change any time as we're told people have come back. What kind of bearing do you think that has on this? We've been dealing with this for years, in fact, decades in a sense, in terms of compliance. Happens to be now it's February. And I have to admit, and I have to tell Councillor Duncan, I kind of want to be out front here in terms of how I'm thinking. The issue's being raised. Of course, it's a natural concern. Getting people out of here in February kind of thing. And I understand that's sort of, it is officially a separate issue, but who are we to sort of not be curious in terms of what the city has in terms of any offer of support or advice to the owner or the residents when it comes to evacuating maybe another 8 people from the building? What is the role of the city in this?
Well, there is this Office of the Social Services and they play that role. And I don't have any further comment.
And also the provincial government is dealing with these issues as well with us. Fair enough. And so is there so it's livability issues that you're concerned about, but not necessarily fire and safety as far as they're concerned. Fire and paramedics said they're okay from the report they showed us. And so the livability issues are in general compartmentalized. So sorry.
Yeah, well, the order is based on life and fire safety issues. So it's based on sprinkler design, fire alarm design, exit design, how they fire separated these areas. So these are things that require permits, require designers to identify how they're to be achieved, inspections, and then also certification from those same design professionals. So that would be our overarching requirement, is that we don't have any evidence from permits to establish or confirm that even the 24 suites are compliant with 4304.
Okay, and so we've got a couple of issues to me. One is the urgency of safety, to which we did get a report from fire and paramedics in terms of they're saying right here beside us that it essentially checks out in terms of the absolute urgency of safety. In terms of the need for regulatory compliance, absolutely. Longer term, we've been dealing with this since 2016, 1986. We've been dealing years and decades on regulatory compliance, which is separate from, in my opinion, from urgency of safety. And I'm wondering how much longer we can go in terms of, this is not, sorry, I mean, absolutely, you're doing your jobs, but there ends up being sort of an arbitrariness to no one's fault. We need to deal with dates and times in order for us to follow through on getting things done. But inevitably, there's a certain arbitrariness when it comes to a specific date. You set a date and you got to stick to it because that's how the system works. And having said that, when it comes to the urgency of safety, I get something out of the fire and paramedics report here, and as they sit here to answer questions on it. I completely appreciate your responsibilities here for us, for the city, in terms of ensuring, and after years of I would say some patience, getting some regulatory cooperation here. My concern is it is winter time, and there might be 8 people or so living here. They are paying, Mr. Kambamba is paying $1,000 a month in the fees. And so I just need to let Councillor Duncan know, as well as yourselves, this is where I'm coming from. I'm not denying your responsibilities to uphold the city standards. But given it is winter time, I'm going to let you know, Councillor Duncan, where I'm coming from is how do we do this in order that everyone's as safe as possible, kind of thing, as uncomfortable as we might be, given Vivian's explanation of witness there to the building. What's the best we can do, kind of thing, as it is still, almost the middle of winter, and that's where I'll be coming from on this. Do you have any comment to say about that in terms of the priorities that I hold in trying to make the best decision we can here today?
Through you, Mr. Chair, with all due respect, the code and the bylaws do not specify time of year considerations. If something is needed to be done, it should be done.
Okay.
And that, I think, is reflected in our issuance of the order. Our timelines, we allowed the 14 days that are required by the charter for the appeal to be filed. And once the appeal was filed, we have now, we haven't done any further enforcement as far as ensuring that the building is vacant. It should be, because the order was issued. But pending this appeal and this decision that will be made today, we haven't done anything further in that regard.
When a decision's made like this, let's say the decision is made in favor of your recommendation, as it is being shown before the appeal, how many days are we talking about in terms of evacuation?
Well, the order says that the owner is supposed to have it vacant immediately.
And that was as of
that's what it
January?
says.
Yeah.
And I can't speak for any of the other social supports, whether it's through city services or any of the private social services that are out there, or wherever else. And again, we don't take this these steps lightly.
Fair enough.
This is a rather unique situation for the department to take these steps. But nonetheless, that is our position. And we would work with those agencies to come up with something that is deemed reasonable. But at the end of the day, we know what we know and we can't unsee it.
And what agencies would those be, sorry?
Any of the private social agencies, I don't know all their names, and
Okay, fair enough. No,
through community services and the CAO's office.
You'll have an opportunity. The appellant will have an opportunity.
all right, there are no further questions,
I
Councillor.
apologize, I said I had no other questions. I had one question just for clarification. Should this appeal be denied? And it will actually be cleared? What takes place at that point in time so that they can get people back in the building or that the work can be done? How does that look?
If the will of the committee is to deny the appeal, or to deny, then it goes back as if we haven't issued it, so they could reoccupy, I suppose. Now, having said that, the department is still of the belief that
Sorry, the denial of the appeal would enforce the recommendation of the property development, just so we're clear there.
Oh, I see.
Yes. So
Okay,
if they're ordered to vacate, we say yes, vacate today.
right.
What happens to the building? What would be the expectation of the ownership to get things?
Well,
What are the expectations?
it would be up to the owner to vacate the property and to take the steps and make sure that it is properly secured. So they can secure it conventionally, like meaning just lock the doors and ensure that nobody can get access. And if it doesn't get or if there are break-ins or issues like that, it would be referred over to community services under the vacant buildings bylaw, and they would then take steps to secure it as a vacant building.
And what about the work that is being
So the
required to be done?
step one would be to get all the permits in place and the reports in place.
Yes. So we do have an active 2022 permit with the appellant. So his architect, as you mentioned, withdrew, I think, last week. So right now we're waiting for the new architect to provide drawings. The permit is actually very close to being issued with 24 suites. So we were waiting for a structural engineer. So right now we're still waiting for a structural engineer for the fire escape or exterior stair. That's part of the design, assuming that remains. And the architect's drawings to identify how they're going to move forward. If they're going to maintain the 24 suites, or if they're looking to expand. If they're looking to expand, there can be some other challenges with that. But if at a minimum, maintaining the 24 suites required drawings.
Departmental work.
Yep.
would be-
Yep.
And is there any sort of priority given to somebody who is issued an order to vacate as a property owner?
With the active permit, we're quite aware of the situation. We would be looking at those drawings in a timely manner.
But responsibility of the owner to get those.
It is correct, yes, yeah.
All right. Okay, I appreciate that. So this, should the order to vacate be upheld, should the appeal, I'll speak for the actual language here, the appeal by the owner be denied, you as a department would continue to work with them to have the work done, the building will be vacant.
Yes.
Okay, I think I'm ready to hear back. Should the appellant have any further comments?
Okay, so the appellant is entitled to speak in rebuttal to comments made, but no new information is permitted. So Akeem, you have up to 10 minutes, but just remember this is a rebuttal, so it's no new information.
So anything that you heard from the time you were up here, you can speak to. There's no new information to be introduced at this point in time. Thank you.
However, clarification on the number of inhabitants or number
You
of.
didn't clarify that because it was information that was given during this time, after this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council, for letting me back to speak. First of all, I want to address the lady there in terms of health concerns. We have heard health department. After the fire that happened in December in room 17, all the departments came to the building. Fire, health department, building inspector, PPDF, and they examined the building. The health department did come and they walked through. They would say they have no concerns about the building. Building is clean. There's no garbage, which is mentioned by the lady there. That was probably not last year. But as far as all the showers, all the taps, all the plumbing, as Ben did mention, all those are functioning normally. So we have no issues in regard to it. Fire department has also confirmed that they have no immediate safety concerns. So those two items are the key to allowing some of our residents who are turned away from the shelters, turned away from other apartment buildings to come back to the hotel. The hotel is safe. There's nothing dangerous there. Nobody's going to die from any fire or health issues. And in the last month, since the evacuation, we've done extensive cleaning of all the rooms, making sure that these rooms are livable. As my tenant Ken has said, we're dealing with people who are in difficult circumstances, vulnerable people, people who have serious issues. You're not going to expect them to live 100%. You're not going to say that they're not going to sneak in doing drugs in their rooms. So we must bear into that moment. Plus, as I indicated in my submissions, Main Street project has impacted the whole neighborhood. When they turn people away at 11 p.m., the next immediate door to go to is the Manwin Hotel. And out of my conscience, I cannot refuse somebody to come in to my building at -40. People have come into my building with their fingers cut off because they have nowhere to go. Can't our government have compassion for these people? For goodness sake, tossing out people at -40. I come from a country whereby a general can walk in to a village and kill thousands of people. That's where I come from. I ran from brutality. I cannot, out of consciousness, allow people to freeze in the cold in the winter in Canada. Canada is supposed to be a country that takes care of everybody. We're a rich country. My tenants could not even get into shelters because the shelters were full. That's the reality of the situation on Main Street. If you drive by Main Street project, they have benches outside their building. People are sleeping there at -40 because the shelters are full. What we've basically done is increase homelessness in Winnipeg by tossing out people under this. Is it better to be outside or inside? I know the weather is getting warmer, but still, this is the home of people who've lived there for 20 years, 15 years. All of a sudden, they're told, go get lost. I remember Ken being told to go to Salvation Army. The social worker called Salvation Army. Sorry, we are full. But out of my compassion, I allowed these people who are completely, instead of allowing them to stand outside, I said, you know what, I can't. They are staying, these 10 or less people are staying in there free of charge. I'm not asking for any money from them. It's just because of my compassion. So that's the second issue. I ask you to please allow these people to come back. I'm not interested in money. All I want is the building to function so I can meet their timelines. It's not gonna be long. As they have indicated to you, the architects are almost done. Can you just allow things to go normally so that at least I can get those revenues to get this compliance done? That's all I ask. It's not a big ask. Let's have compassion in Canada. That's all I ask. I know the laws are there to be followed. But if you are stuck in the snow, a Canadian who walks away from you is not being a nice Canadian. You work hard to help the individual get his car going. This is the nature of a country that I find to be so nice to look after us. I was only given 5 minutes in my country to leave or else get killed. South Sudan, Congo, these are the areas I come from. There's no care, no compassion for human life. So we have our Aboriginal people on the streets. Denying disappeal means we do not care about these few people. I know they have issues, but those issues are controlled by bringing them in. Let us look after them. Let us help them. I cancel them. These 10 people are the ones who completely had nowhere to go. What do I do? Just lock them out? Again, I'm not taking any money until this issue is resolved. Those are the key things that I want to tell you. The Institute project has badly affected the neighborhood because so many homeless people are there, hanging outside, sleeping on those benches. I've even caught some of them having sex on those benches. Please, kindly, listen to me. That's all I appeal. I could stay all day talking about the problems I see. If council cannot help us mitigate these problems of homelessness, then we are not doing the right thing. I beg you, please, to take the right decision so that I can take the news to these people that you are allowed to stay so that their residences are covered, they can get their money, they can go to the neighboring home food areas and eat instead of going all the way to the river and sleep there. There's shelters there. People have built tents. Please. I'm very emotional about this because I care about human beings. These are not animals. And my lady there is a native lady. I am
Your comments through the chair, please.
Yes. Yes. The lady there is from the native community. I do care about native people. I've worked for years with them. It's because I know what suffering is. Denying them a place to sleep, denying them privacy is a very serious problem. They came to me from the shelter, says, Akeem, we can't even stand in the shelter. There's no room. Please, I beg all of you to take the right decision so that people can come back, lead their lives, and I will ensure, I'll work very hard with the PPTF to ensure that the building is brought to compliance as soon as possible. But I need the support from all of you. I'm scrambling everywhere to see how we can get this done. Extending this will be a long process that will not help us. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Schreier.
Yeah, a couple of questions. Thanks.
Here's a question for you, just as long as we're not going into new information at this point.
Regarding specifically to what he spoke of and the administration as well, and our common issues and concerns here in this case specifically. We talked about how during the evacuation, there's been notable compliance. Most people, this is what we've heard so far, if you want to comment, that most people have complied and most people have left. They have evacuated on their own.
Yes, actually, I told them to leave,
Okay.
but they didn't want to go.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very hard. And
Fair enough.
PPDF enforcement officers were supposed to come and help me.
Yeah.
But they didn't come.
Sorry, who is supposed to help, you say?
Enforcement officers were supposed to come on the 17th, Then I got a call from
January?
yeah.
Okay.
the enforcement day. And then I got a call from the enforcement officer. He said, sorry, I'm not sending my team there. It's too cold. So I had to do it by myself. So I got most of them out. And I only, the extreme situation when they came back, a few of them, I said, you know what, we'll just come because there's no other, you have nowhere else.
All right, I appreciate that. But you also said that during this period of evacuation, when most people left, you did say that there's been extensive improvements
Yes,
to the suites where they evacuated.
yeah, I've done that. And Jason Robertson, the building inspector, was supposed to come and do an inspection last Friday, but I got an email from him saying that he's cancelled. But I sent you pictures of the areas he wanted improved. That included a new flooring in the showers, and make sure the showers are working, the taps are working, the sinks, make sure the building is clean, no garbage everywhere. And we've gone through every single room. Ken will testify to that, and cleaned everything up, patched all the holes that people are put in the building, and the building is in a fairly good condition right now.
So you said you fixed everything. That's
Yes.
good. I mean, in terms of compliance with our concerns as presented today,
Yeah.
that's a good thing. I'm going to assume that there's still some things to get done.
Yes, there's a few still to be done, but we've identified those. I think there's about 3 rooms, but we've done fresh paint, closed all the holes in the walls, done extensive, put new shower handles, done extensive cleaning, and cleaned all the garbage is gone.
And so, since notable amount of work has been done recently, extensive work, you're itemizing it, and you're saying if you were to continue on this path, which you say is rather extensive, seems like to me from what you say, on that basis, how much more time would it take to complete this compliance, or at least these grand improvements
Now,
improvements that you discussed?
just our biggest project would be the stairs in the back, the fire escape stairs. My friends here from PPTF are aware about it. We've already got the contractor for that, and we're waiting for the permission from the PPTF to give us the permit, and we should be able to get that done hopefully by the summer, because it takes time to build the new stairs. And then we are going to have the ground has to be dug, to dig the ground, to put the support for the stairs in the back.
Okay.
And in terms of the fire separation walls, it is simply a matter of knocking out those that are not compliant. Because from my looking at those rooms that were increased, we're simply going to knock out that wall that was put there illegally. And that should be done within 2 weeks if we get the permit. And then then that part should be quicker done than. That's why I suggest to you, allow the 24 people into the hotel. We don't take the others because these rooms are going to be gone anyway, the extra rooms. I remember a gentleman from PPDF talked about sprinklers and so on. The history about these rooms, from what I know, what I heard, is that a long time ago, they were small rooms. So each of those rooms had sprinklers. Then those rooms were made wider. And then when they were made wider, the sprinklers are still there, they exist. And fire department has checked them. Kelly from the fire department has been in each of those rooms, one by one, confirmed that there is sprinklers in those rooms. Not only that, Pyrene, the company that deals with fire safety, has confirmed that those sprinklers work. So there's no danger to anybody during that time. Yeah, so if you allow me to the people back, we'll only take 24. Those rooms, the other rooms, we will follow what the PPDF wants.
You talk about, when I talked about, asked about repairs, you bothered to mention the stairwell. Having said that, we just had fire and paramedics here to discuss and answer questions about their safety report and their judgment. And they mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, here it looks like item 6 of their violation notice. It's where it says, okay, they talk about the egress. I believe, anyone can correct me, please, that the fire and paramedic service, in terms of their safety report, said that that they gave it an okay in terms of the stairwell. And I hope I got that right, as vague as that is in terms of that issue. So you still want to do work on that, but I don't see any violation of the stairwell from this report.
Yes, I agree with you. In fact, Kelly told me that Kelly from the fire department told me, as far as him and his department is concerned, that's not an issue for them, because there's still 2 fire escape routes, and all the alarm systems are good, they work. So people will have enough time to get to those 2 escape routes. In fact, nobody, as my friend Ken will testify, nobody even uses the fire stairs in the back. But out of the request of PPDF, as soon as the funds become available, we will endeavor to fix that. But our top priority will be, if we get the permit, to remove those illegally developed rooms so that we can comply with the code.
I live a block from Redwood and Main. So I drive by the Manwin essentially every day.
Yes.
Sometimes I walk by the Manwin every day because it's in my spheres of work and home.
Yeah.
And so that will happen, including sometimes walking to work. I'm not going to make any bones about it. We are talking about a certain element of dysfunction here, of which you are proprietor and take some sort of responsibility, as you're willing to attest, as is your wish, that we are here today. And you're willing to talk about it, answer questions about it. You talk about your compassion for the situation, and essentially, I believe you. No doubt in my mind, and it's a good thing. I believe you have some sort of personal relationship, with the residents there, despite what is an obvious. We're talking about dysfunction. Let's face it. And what's the best? Your role, because we're wondering, if they're not there, where are they going to go for a few weeks or something like that? And so this is kind of serious. You're in the middle of this. And so I got to ask you this question. Most of the tenants have already left. Can you give us any advice at this time in terms of what you would think would be the hope? Should your appeal be denied, and at a certain point, there would be further evacuation for the remainder of the tenants. Do you have any advice for me? Do you have any advice for us in terms of what we can do to help these the remainder tenancies, maybe eight people for a duration?
I get where you're going with this, Counselor, but it's not for the appellate here to tell us where to house people, right?
That's true.
He doesn't run a shelter, hotel under this order right now. Public Service is telling us that there are electrical, egress, and compartmentation issues that are causing them to enact this bylaw against them. So I appreciate that you're trying to figure out where to put these folks that may be otherwise unhoused, but that's not what we're dealing with right now.
Fair enough, but and I understand that. Fair enough. You're the chair on this, and I've got no way of winning a challenge to the chair, given the two of us here today. Having said that, I'm not the one that raised the issue here in the meeting. So I'm like, once again, the issue has been raised here by others. They were allowed to raise it. It was discussed. I have asked questions. And in consistency with the pattern of this meeting, I then asked the questions to the owner. Given that he's been talking about pleading and compassion, it was sort of natural and logical for me to continue what was conversed here during this meeting to him. But I appreciate your concerns, Chair Evans, but as far as I'm concerned, I was merely being consistent. To what point that goes beyond the sphere, that's your call, Chair Evans. So having said that, all right, I comply to that. I can't challenge the chair with only two of us here. And I see where you're coming from. Hope you see where I'm coming from. I did not raise the issue that I just raised with Mr. Kambamba.
All right.
I just have one question for you. Should this appeal that you are making here today be denied, are you fully aware that you can get into your establishment, make the changes needed, and reopen once you're in compliance? Are you aware of that? Okay, thank you. That's all for today for questions for here for the appellants. We'll move on now.
Return to the gallery, sir. There are motions. Oh, no, sir, the appeal, the rebuttal is only for the appellant, so you can have a seat back in the gallery.
Thank you. All right. I will offer if you'd like to take a motion here, Councillor Schreier. Otherwise, I can make a motion, but
I'll pick the chair if you wish, Chair.
Great.
Okay, all right. So be it. You can go ahead.
Absolutely. So I'll move that the receipt of public representations be concluded.
Motion carries.
Call the question, please.
I'm in consensus.
Yeah,
Okay, fair enough. Those in favor, motion carries.
I'll move that the appeal be denied and the order of the Enforcement Services Supervisor, Development and Inspections Division, Planning, Property and Development be confirmed.
And those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And I will move that the appeal hearing be concluded.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, please note that the committee has made a final decision on this matter, which is not subject to further appeal.
Thank you. And I will take the chair back. Can I get the motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much for your time today. This concludes our special meeting of property planning development appeals.
Yo.